Hey, Julie Lawson here. Today I'm talking about burnout because I published an article on LinkedIn titled 5 Things That Are Burning You Out. And a handful of people reached out and said, can you expand on that list? And I said, absolutely. There are probably 100 things that are burning us out, especially at an individual level. But these are the things that kind of rise to the top that myself and my employees hear from our clients that are really stressing us out and burning us out as a collective people. And these are things that may be happening to you and or the employees that you have working with you at your company. So let me dig right in. The first thing I want to mention is our physical selves, how we take care of our bodies and our mental and spiritual selves. We tend to, across the board, not get enough sleep, or at least not enough quality sleep. And I can't tell you the impact that has on your mental wellness throughout the day and your ability to keep up energetically with the tasks that you have to do. If necessary, if you feel like you're getting enough sleep by hours and enough somewhat quality sleep, but still feel really tired, go to the doctor and get some things checked, run a blood panel, and maybe get a sleep study. I'm shocked at how many healthy young people still have sleep apnea. So this is not always a disorder that is for people who are overweight, though it does affect people who are overweight, nor is it only people who maybe are at a certain age. So really think about some of the studies or tests that you might need run to make sure you're running in optimal health in terms of the energy that you're getting. We need 7 to 8 hours of sleep. I'm gonna drone on about it. I hate it too. I wish we needed 4 and that would be enough, but it's not. Every study out there says, somewhere between 6 and 8, optimally 7 to 8 hours. So I want to mention that first, because if we're not eating well, if we're not exercising well, and if we're not getting enough sleep, everything else is kind of not approachable in terms of things that we can actually get our hands around and make a meaningful change with. Second is whether or not you procrastinate. Procrastination is an incredible stressor for us. So if you're somebody who tends to freeze and procrastinate doing things that are important, or doing things that maybe even aren't important but just have been nagging you and you need to get done, that's going to place an undue amount of stress on you. And the longer you wait to do those things, the more stressful it's going to become. I know that you can relate to this, that you put something on your to-do list, you finally get it done and you think, why was I putting that off? I feel so much better now. Think about having that feeling all day, every day. And that's the magic of not procrastinating. And so if you're a procrastinator, try to get 3 things that you can pinpoint every single day that you can get done. And it's great if you do 5 things, it's great if you do 20. But I want you to focus on 3 things every single day that you can say, I accomplished that. If nothing else, I got that done. That's going to help speed up that sort of procrastination metabolism in you and help you figure out how to best incorporate practices that are going to move you forward faster. Third is we tend to be change resistant, and this is a problem that everyone has. I'm a certified change management professional, which is a fancy way of saying I think about change and I help people really navigate the changes that they're going through, whether it be their personal lives or their professional and organizational lives. And so when we look at change, it's scary. It's something we don't necessarily like because we don't know what's going to happen. We don't know the impact it will have on us or our business or our families. And so we just sort of push it away and say, I like things the way they are. And the more resistant we are to change, the worse it's going to be for us. So the faster we can embrace what's happening, the faster we can get to acceptance, the better off we're going to be. Now, some of you will say, well, what if I don't like the change? What if the change isn't acceptable? There are changes that aren't acceptable. Being fired, losing someone, having an accident, but they still happen. And we are still different people because those things have happened in our lives. Some of that crosses into trauma, which is something I'm happy to talk to you about offline. You're more than welcome to reach out to me on that. But some of it's simply change that it was difficult for us to navigate, such as in the pandemic. We had a lot of changes that were difficult. And now we're looking back and saying, oh my gosh, I feel like I had whiplash. Of course you did. And that sort of residual mental impact is really what you're feeling in terms of burnout. You're feeling that, oh my gosh, everything finally came forward, slammed against me. I'm finally adjusting to all the things I just did for the last 2 years, and then wondering why we're burned out. Well, that's a big part of it because you had to change so many things in fast order. Your brain didn't have time to catch up, and these were things you didn't want to change. And so that change resistance was impacting the way that you were able to get through your daily life. And you did it, and kudos to us for doing it. My gosh, we all globally showed our resilience, but we also are paying somewhat of a price now of that thought process catching up to us and saying, oh, wow, that was a lot. That was a lot in 2 years. So allow yourself that in terms of patience and and the ability to really adjust to that time that it's going to take. Next is healthy boundaries. Can you say no? And I know a bunch of you are going, no, I really stink at that. We want to please other people. We want to help. And some of us, more so than others, I am absolutely guilty of that. That is one thing I have to work really hard on, is being able to say no. And there's a series of questions that I ask people to ask if they're struggling to know whether the answer should be yes or no. The first is, are you the only or the best person who can do that particular thing? If somebody says, can you pick up my kids from school? You're not the only one who can do that. You're not necessarily the best who can do that. So if that's a no, feel free to say no. Is it something that you are going to be okay if you do it? In other words, you may strain yourself, you may lose a little sleep, you may be stressed out, but ultimately you're going to be okay if you do this thing. Go ahead and do it. And then the third question I have for you is, will it irreparably damage an important relationship if you don't do it? And if you answered yes to that, again, you may want to do whatever this thing is. Outside of those three things, not impacting a relationship too negatively, not putting yourself into peril and perhaps threatening your health, and not being the only person who has the skill or the particular capability to do something, if it's outside of those three things, feel empowered to say no. There will be someone else who can do it, and someone else who might be thrilled to do it. That's something that I see with chronic volunteers, is they don't realize that other people want to step into leadership positions and do things. And the volunteer says, oh, I just didn't know. I was always saying yes to things because I didn't think anybody else would. They will. And so give them an opportunity to step up into those spaces as well and share that. Fifth, mental illness. I don't always like the word mental illness because it implies that there is a chronic or disease state problem. And that's not the case. I'm talking about anxiety or depression that may be chronic for you, but it also may be situational. When we say illness, you can say you have a cold and you would be ill. That's a temporary thing, but so can some mental health problems that we suffer from. So if you're suffering from anxiety or depression and it's new for you, that doesn't mean it's going to be a chronic problem. It does mean you need to treat it. I have noticed the amount of burnout increasing so much among those who already struggle with depression or anxiety and perhaps are untreated or undertreated, meaning they need to change medication, they need to change the type or the frequency of therapy sessions, but also among those who haven't struggled with that prior to the last couple of years. However these things visit you, don't ignore them. Make sure that you're talking to a professional, whether it be a mental health professional like a therapist or a psychologist, or your medical doctor, to see what other kind of treatments or interventions are possible. It is not a life sentence necessarily. There's a lot of great coping mechanisms and even medicines out there that will temporarily help you. And if you do need it long term, so what? So what? What I want is good, healthy, focused, productive people who are happy and well. And so if that's what it takes to get us there, amen. So I want you to think about that and make sure that you're attending to that mental and spiritual health as you navigate burnout. Number 6, work-life balance. Oh, this pie in the sky idea that we have about work-life balance, which doesn't actually exist. In the technological age we are in, it is almost impossible to completely unplug from both things. When you're at work, you're going to hear from people at home. When you're at home, you're going to hear from people at work. We can ignore it. And if that's the boundary that's helpful for you, that's fine. You can certainly not answer the emails until the next morning. You cannot answer the call from a parent that just wants to talk while you're at work. But what I would recommend more is find the balance that feels right for you. And what that may look like is work-life integration, which means that really what you're leaning towards is, I can answer a couple of emails at home as long as I don't feel like that's stressing me out too much. And I can answer the call about getting new gutters while I'm working during the day, and that doesn't necessarily strain me too much. It's more of a regulation of how you feel on an ongoing basis that tells you where your threshold is. And that threshold may change. You may go through periods where you say, I cannot answer an email at home. I'm sorry. I just need to clock out and focus. And then other times you can answer 10 and not notice anything is bothering you. So really just pay attention to what you're feeling internally and what the work-life balance is for you. It's not a prescription, meaning it doesn't mean that if you clock out at 5, that's going to be the secret sauce that's going to be the answer. Sometimes you can clock out at 5 and that's going to be your threshold and you need to go home. Other times you can work till 7 or 8 and feel just fine. And so figuring out what that balance is for you and what looks right to you is what's most important there. Next is leadership. We are struggling against some I think, redefinition of what leadership means. The ways that we behave, how we lead, and probably number one in that seat is how we lead remotely. It's a very difficult thing to do. So we are looking to our leaders to guide us. We have sort of an emotional contagion in the human condition that if our leaders are stressed, we'll be stressed. If our partner is stressed, we'll be stressed, that sort of thing. So our leaders are stressed too. And as they're navigating all of these changes and figuring out how to lead those changes when they're not sure what they mean or what the impact is going to be, it stands to reason we're going to have a difficult time getting from them the type of direction and focus that we need. I'm not giving a pass to bad leaders. I'm just saying this is something we have to consider when we're getting frustrated with the way that our leaders are leading us. And then the last two that I want to mention, one is overstimulation. And I think all of you can relate to that. Your devices ding all day long. You get emails. There's bells and whistles going off around us 24/7. We tend to wake up and look at the phone. We go to bed looking at the phone or the TV or the iPad or whatever it is. And we don't check out. We don't unplug. And for some people, that's really critical. We have to detach our brains from that wiring that keeps us wired into the device. And the more that we're able to take a moment, maybe 10 minutes, and do a quiet meditation or take a break and just go and have lunch outside, you will find that those things start to become a little bit easier. You don't feel as anxious, just generally speaking. I'm not talking about in any situation in particular, just generally speaking, you're going to feel more relaxed. And finally, manage your expectations well. One of the things that people struggled with during the pandemic is how to keep up with the life that they were leading, the responsibilities that they had, and adapt to all of the changes that were going around them. And what I would say is that's not realistic. It's not expected of us to be able to accept everything that's been going on and just kind of toss it into a salad and say, oh, okay, we're good. That's not how we work. That's not how our brains work. And now that the pandemic is done, I see people expecting things to go back to exactly the way that they were before. Here's the thing. We are not the same as we were before. 2 years is a long time, and it's been 2 years of a lot of change and difficulty and struggle in many ways, not just the pandemic. Because those things have happened, we are not the same people we were in 2019. So to say we can go back and just pick up where we left off is not realistic. We have to manage the expectations we have around what is possible, what is critical. Listen to what I'm saying there. What is critical? What is the priority? And what could be put aside and either left behind or not worried about at this time because it's not really where our biggest focus should be. The best way to think about that is if you had a week left on this earth, what would you focus on? Who would you focus on? And that's going to tell you that why. And it's going to help you focus in on what is really important and what matters the most to you at work and at home, and help you figure out what the right expectations are. In other words, having a perfect house is not necessarily the expectation. Having a house that is safe and healthy and really warm for the people that you love and that enter that house may be what's most important to you. So get very clear on what those expectations are that you have about yourself and those around you, so that we don't find ourselves being continually disappointed by ourselves and others. I hope that those things were helpful to you to think about in terms of burnout. If there's any way that I can help you, make a comment in the comment section, or you can reach out to me through ReinsInstitute.com. That's REINS Institute.com. And I hope you are able to fight burnout and be your best self. Thanks so much.